This program is about explaining everyone, which means common people, public, about the need to know to manage certain emergencies, because emergencies can happen to anyone, anytime, and at any place. Now, if we happen to be the bystander for that emergency, and you see that someone is suffering with some problem, I think everyone right now knows. They know that they need to call ambulance. Most of the rural people, or even in cities, they call 108 ambulance services. And there is something that needs to be done before ambulance arrives, because in our setting, even in the city, for the ambulance to come, it takes 20 to 30 minutes. In fortunate cases, maybe in 10 to 15 minutes. In rural areas, the time will be even more. So instead of just standing by the side of the patient at that point of time, if we know that what needs to be done to control the damage, to save the lives, I think it is very, very important. That is the time when we play, I would say that like a god. Like God, we play the role there to save that life. So I will be talking about certain simple, common emergency problems. The first thing is bleeding. Let us say we are walking on the road and suddenly there is an accident and someone got hurt and there is bleeding. Just for an example, I would say that this area is injured and there is a heavy bleeding happening from this place. What will you do? Of course, yes, we call the ambulance. Suppose we think that ambulance takes time. There are some people who are more proactive and they actually carry the victim until the nearby hospital. But will you leave the bleeding spot like that? So what can be done there? So bleeding comes because the blood vessel there gets damaged. So injuries can be different types. So common injury in accidents is crush injury. Suppose something crushes, so blood vessel gets completely damaged, disrupted, so it starts bleeding. Or a cut injury. So cut injuries are usually clean cuts, where it is cut and it bleeds. In any case, think that it is just a tube. From multiple tubes, blood is coming out. So what we need to do is put pressure on it. Take a cloth, some clean cloth. Suppose if it is at home, in and around, let us say some factory, workplace, usually you get a clean cloth. Take the cloth, put pressure on the wound so that bleeding gets reduced. The reason being, if the bleeding continues, the blood loss will be more. Even by the time when you take the patient through the ambulance to hospital, the blood is lost, you can't save the patient. So your main goal here is to stop the blood loss. So what we do, just put blunt pressure on the that oozing site, bleeding site. You don't need to know what is, what vessel, all these things. Just put pressure on that. But when you are use a clean cloth, because if you use a dirty cloth, it will cause infection later. So some people, they remove their, let us say the shirt or something, and then put pressure on that heavily, that bleeding gets controlled. If it is at home and you get, for example, it's a small wound and you get to have ice with you, you can take ice cubes in any of the clean cloth and then put pressure on that. It is even more effective because cold compression causes vessels to shrink, vasoconstriction. So blood vessels, they shrink. So bleeding automatically stops. On top of it, you are putting pressure on it. So the physical pressure compresses the blood vessel and then the bleeding will be reduced. This is something wherever maybe the wound, it can be anywhere in the body. It can be on the hands, it can be on the legs, it can be on the trunk here. You see that the bleeding is happening, put pressure on that with a clean cloth and then wait until help arrives. And then while transportation also, it is to be done. If ambulance comes, they know what to do.